Start off with your run as Diesel in the World Wrestling Federation mid-90s. If you could tell us a little bit about that run. You had come from WCW and gotten the break in New York.
Yeah, funny story is they weren't using me at all at WCW, and Shawn Michaels had talked to Robbie Steiner, who just came out there, that was a good friend of mine, and said he liked the Vinny Vegas character and thought maybe he'd be a good bodyguard because the guys weren't selling for Shawn, and he needed like a heater. So at the time I was traveling with Barry Windham a lot, who was office at WCW, and I just told him, I said, my wife, she's just going to leave me if I don't get out of the business. So I know I had an offer on the other end, but I had to get out of my contract. And I was so valuable to WCW that Ole, the next day, gave me my release.
Wow, it took him that long.
Yeah, it took him as long as he could take the pen. And then actually I started, that next Sunday we were in Albany, and Shawn wrestled Giannetti, and then that Monday we beat Giannetti for the IC belt with my help, and then I went from there. But
Did you know Shawn before that?
No, not at all.
And when you got there, obviously they put you with Shawn, like you said.
Right.
Fast friendship developed.
Yeah, it was one of those deals where just the schedule we had at that time, was basically 21, 25 days on, 4 or 5 days off, month after month. You'd work 300 days a year, and it was me, Shawn, and Scott Hall just in the car every day, just day in, day out. And when I came in, those guys had incredible heat. Everybody hated Hall and Michaels, and it just, like, when they brought me in, it was almost like a shoot where, like, I was the heater that kind of kept the heat off those two guys. And
you knew Scott Hall from?
I knew Scott. Yeah, I'd known Scott for almost 3 years prior to that in WCW. We drove up and down the road together, so, and kind of formed the first kind of click faction there. The three of us kind of just did what we always were together.
Let's talk about that, because you're talking about the Diesel, Razor Ramon, Shawn Michaels, three of the three top guys back in that period. So you wielded a lot of power in the WWF.
Yeah, it started off that Shawn and Scott wrestled against each other for probably 18 months. And had some classic, and then I got a chance to sit ringside and watch these guys work, watch them, be able to actually listen to them call when things got fucked up and things like that, and learn basically how to work before I ever had to get in the ring. Through osmosis, I just watched two of the better guys. Probably, I think Shawn's probably the best athlete ever, but I think Scott was always underrated because Scott was incredible. Scott could work against a small guy. Scott could work against a big guy. So, I got a chance to kind of learn from probably my era's two greatest workers. And there'll be a lot of people that'll argue that, but not with me. And, then somehow Shawn had some bogus drug deal that they said he was on steroids, and the only thing he was on was beer. Bloated like a toad, but...
Get his money back.
Yeah, exactly. I think he weighed about 250 then, and they suspended him, and he got pissed off and kind of walked, and they threw me in that role, and I ended up fighting Scott for 2 or 3 months, and then they ended up putting the IC belt on me, and then Shawn came back, and we went from there. But for the better part of 3 years, that three guys kind of worked in some form or fashion against each other.
You had a run as World Heavyweight Champion for the WWF.
Yeah.
That's all you want to say?
Well, it's just one of those things, a persona gets over that's kind of a badass. It's just kind of a no-nonsense guy, and then, it's like anything else that they do. It's like when the Road Warriors, the Road Warriors were the biggest badasses, and all of a sudden, they walk out of the other locker room and they became vulnerable and started selling like Steamboat, and the people pissed, people shit on it.
That's not what they want to see.
No, and my character got over, and to be in a certain way, and the first time you see me, I'm singing with the rest of the office staff, "We Wish You a Merry Christmas" with a Santa hat on. I mean, it's just like
Not very intimidating, I don't think.
no, and it was one of those situations where at that point, I mean, Vince McMahon is like Steinbrenner. I mean, if he tells you to do something, you don't question it. And as time went on, I realized that he was really still kind of based in that red, white, and blue good guy thing. I remember sitting in his office one time, and this is when I told him what I wanted to do when I was going to drop the belt to Brett. I told him, I said, I think that the way this is going is the anti-hero. I said, that's where your baby face is going to be. And he said, I disagree. And I said, did you see the movie Heat? And he said, yeah. And I said, at the end, I said, did you want Pacino to win, to go over, or did you want De Niro? And he goes, fuck De Niro. I said, he was the heel. Mm-hmm. And he looked at me like, and then I think that the Diesel persona at the end of my run there was way more over than the Diesel that was the champion, because he had that attitude, and then basically they took that character and transformed it and gave the same entrance to Steve. Mm-hmm. Basically the same. Steve became kind of the same character. Glass break. The only thing was, it wasn't a horn. I mean, he kind of. So I think psychology-wise, I think I was onto something there, and then it worked when we went to Atlanta, the invasion. We basically did the same thing.
At some point during your run there, let's jump back a little bit back to New York, with you and Sean and Scott, throw Hunter in there, and X-Pac.
Yeah, I got to throw a kid in there.
And that, no matter how you slice it, that's power. That's five of the most powerful and most talented guys in the company who have each other's back and looking out for each other's best interests. You guys rule the roost.
Well, the thing that Vince had at that time was, that it was always this secretive payoff procedure, where a guy would get a payoff, and then it was like playing the poker, where everybody did what'd you get, none of your business what'd you get. Well, I'm not going to tell you. We were the first guys that got in the car and went, what'd you get for SummerSlam? Oh fuck, I got fucked. I remember one time in Survivor Series, me and Scott worked the whole match. Sean came in and super kicked me. I got 35 grand. Sean got like 75.
Per super kick, not a bad.
Yeah, so we called up Vince. We said, hey, what's going on? He said, well, I didn't do the payoffs. You'll have to. At that time, I think JJ was the heat magnet, and they dumped it in JJ. Well, it must have been an oversight. Then you get the trickle down. But it's like anything else. If you didn't talk, you didn't know. And certain guys. I remember one time I was in the office and I had a pass key. This would be a good shoot story that nobody will know in that office. But I went in there. I did the James Bond where I took the box tape and put it on Ann Russo's door, so when she shut her door at night, it wouldn't lock.
Right.
I went back in. I worked out. I knew where the pay stubs were. I went into her office, turned on the light. I pulled out the thing, and then there was the payoffs for like the last 60 towns. And I was on top, and I went through, and I looked, and Taker made more than me, and Brett made more than me, but I had the strap. So I just said to myself, I said, all right, I see how it goes.
Was that the beginning of...
That was the beginning of the... I mean, it's one of those deals like, obviously he did...
I'm hoping the statute has run on that B&E, by the way. But
it wasn't B&E because I had access. They gave me an access card. But I knew what the payoffs were, so after that I knew. I said, okay, it isn't what it is. Everybody, there is no system. So when Bischoff offered Scott a deal, and Scott took it, and then Bischoff basically said, I'll mirror that deal for your buddy Nash, so Nash will come. Mm-hmm. I mean, I knew in dollars and cents, I mean, what we were being paid working 300 days, I'm thinking, let me get this right, they're going to pay us more and work half as many days?
How could you turn that down?
I got a wife that's 8 months pregnant.
Which leads us to Madison Square Garden.
Right.
Tell us about that night.
Well, Scott and I gave our notices, and we went on we were smoking hash on the bus in Europe. I mean, we broke every rule that you could. We're going straight
through the statute here. You're up to about 40 years in the pen there, Scott. Kevin, let's...
Yeah. This is a work, man.
I'm sorry.
You got to remember, this shit's all a work. You don't know what's true and what's not true.
At the Garden, the big night.
Big night, Scott and I did smoke a little something on the way to the building. Thought it'd be a good idea, maybe do a little curtain call. This last time, and then we said, it was click, it was Sean wrestled me in the main event, and Hunter wrestled Scott in the semi-main event. During Scott's match, they yelled that you sold out to Scott, the Garden crowd did. And then earlier in the day, Sean had ran it by Vince if it was okay if we all kind of went out at the end and kind of said goodbye as a foursome, and he didn't have a problem with it.
All right.
And you know, Briscoe had came to me earlier today and said, you know, you still work for this company, damn it. Vince wants to talk to you when it's over. So we set up a dinner at Smith & Walensky's where we were all going to go to Smith & Walensky's. And I had always told Vince that if he matched Turner's offer, I was going to stay. I mean, it was just, you know. And the thing is about what we do, I said, you know, it's called the business, but as soon as you treat it as a business, then you're a fucking jack off. Mm-hmm. You know. Yeah. You know, as long as it goes towards them, then fine. But if you treat it as a true business, you know, I mean, I've got a pregnant wife, and you know, and Vince is looking at me saying, you know, I thought we were family. I'm like, dude, my family's sitting at home. Mm-hmm. You may not realize it because I'm only there 6 days a year, but you know, they are sitting at home. So we had the main event, and Sean, you know, super kicked me, and at one point I told him, you know, that they brought cameras and stuff. I told him, I said, you know, you're not bringing cameras to Garden, you're not going to replay this while I'm up there, because they never had cameras at house shows. Right, right. I told Vince, I said, you bring cameras. I said, I see one camera. I said, I'm gonna knock your boy out, and I'm gonna walk through with your belt and walk down their TV with your belt. And at one point, I had Sean down the corner and walked all the way to the door and just looked back and just waved and smiled and walked back. And I know they were shitting. Like, oh, this prick's gonna walk through the door. But I would never do that to Sean. Sean knew that. So we ended up, you know, Sean beat me, and then Scott came down, and basically we did a thing at the end, which most people didn't catch, where Hunter and Sean kind of circled off one way, mm-hmm. and then we circled off the other way, like, you know, like it was, you know, the war was on.
Right, right.
We went to the corners and did the thing, and I mean, there were people crying in the crowd. I mean, because that was our home back then. Yeah. And people can say what they want to say, that Kevin Nash didn't draw, he didn't do this, he didn't do that. But all I know is the first night I went to the Garden in 1993, we did a $106,000 house, and that night it was $330. So
speak for themselves.
The business was better when we left than when I got there. And Hogan and everybody was there. Hogan and Randy and everybody were there when I got there. So.
Well, you've got the standoff in the ring.
Got the standoff in the ring, so we get done and we all hug, and it's emotional as hell for us, because in this business you could be best of friends, and as soon as at that point too, as soon as you cross those lines, they're running. You know, especially the New York guys, you're going to lose touch with them. Yeah. You may talk to them once or twice a month on the phone, but you're going to lose touch to them. The simple fact is they're running so hard. Yeah. And we were still running WCW. We were still running 180 shows then. I mean, we were running. So it's just like, you know, when you leave, it's like basically, the scene in Platoon when the black dude looks down at those guys and waves goodbye as he leaves Sheen and the other guy, you know, down in the shit. You know, it just, once you left, you knew. So it was emotional for us. I mean, we were four really, really close friends, and we come back through, and Vince just, you know, he was livid. And
now you said something earlier that Sean had actually asked.
Sean had talked to him. I was in the room when we were going.
Shawn Michaels.
Shawn Michaels had talked to Vince in that little meeting room that was, you know, that was Vince's office there. And he kind of, you know, he didn't say no. He didn't say, yeah, do it. He was just like, whatever. But then I think when it transpired, you know, and of course we broke kayfabe, because at that point fucking nobody knew it was fake. You know, up until then, whew. I know they had me when I was 8, but fucking jack-offs.
All right. So Vince is furious.
Vince is furious. Needless to say that we end up at the strip joint Lookers and not Smith & Walensky's. But and we went our own way.